There's a new password?
Didn't say.
It says new password.
Fancy gavel. All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call the March 12th, 2025 Yolo County City of Davis 2x2 meeting to order. Let the record show reflects 12:05, and looking to my left and to my right, we have Supervisor Allen, Councilman Partita, and Supervisor Ferricks. So we are all here for this meeting today. Item number 2 is designation of chair for the day. When I walked in, my nameplate was in front of the seats, so I've been designated chair of the day. Happy to do that, so thank you. On to agenda item number 3, approval of agenda. We have a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Ferricks, a second by Supervisor Allen. Any further comments or questions on the agenda? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries 4-0. All right, we are on to general public comment. General public comments for any items not, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, number 4. Approval of January 8th, 2025 minutes. Sorry, I skipped over number 4. Do we have a motion to approve our minutes?
So moved. Second?
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Partita, a second by Supervisor Allen. Any further comments on our approval of the minutes? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Now we're on to agenda item number 5, which is general public comment. Any member of the public who would like to make a public comment on the item not listed on the agenda, please feel free to do so now. And you have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Martha Teeter, and I wanted to just make a comment on 6B, the Pacifico rehabilitation, and how important it is to get housing for the low and very low income into actual service. And it's been a long time since that building has been occupied completely, the 2 buildings that are available to the city. And I want to urge you to move ahead as fast as possible to get that available to the community, because there's an incredible need. The emergency shelter in town has been completely now, and we really need that stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Do we have any more in-person general public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will close general public comment, and we will move on to our regular items, discussion items. I'm going to jump in and start with agenda item 6A, coordination of services for the unhoused, and it has Dana Bailey, our Director of Social Services and Housing for the City of Davis here. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm here to talk a little bit about some of the programs and processes that the city has put in place related to our housing outreach, homeless outreach, some of the programs that we've launched recently. I wanted to talk specifically about our new outreach that we're doing in conjunction with our police department in relation to the new encampment ordinance, and that's a outreach to the community to let them know if they have concerns about homelessness and if they're seeing different things and they would like a response first from our homeless outreach team, and then depending on what the circumstances are, how we could deploy someone to address homelessness in the community. I've got some cards for you that I can present to you, but it really encapsulates what our response is, and it's a 3-pronged approach. That is, first there's engagement. That's when we send out our homeless outreach team. They work in partnership with the county's outreach teams. We also work with Turning Point Community Services to make sure people are connected to Medi-Cal and other aid. And we also work with our local providers, Downtown Streets team, and with the operators of Pulse Place, so that we are able to really understand who it is that we're seeing on our streets, what their conditions are, making sure that we're encapsulating a lot of that information into the homeless management information system, so that as a region, if we're seeing people in different places, we have a way to kind of communicate how we've been serving folks. So our first response is engagement. If engagement doesn't appear to be working, or if we need to do something, if it appears that a location has grown to encampment size and we're seeing materials and other things, that's when we move into compliance. Compliance is when we engage with our code enforcement officer and we work with PD. And again, in partnership with our engagement teams, we let people know we'd like you, as just a good community member, to make sure that you're managing your belongings, making sure that you're not strewing trash in a lot of different places. So we try to work with them with that, but if there's a lot of accumulated things, then code enforcement will step in, provide a 72-hour notice, let people know that in 72 hours we're going to be clearing this particular area. If there are things that you need to save, if they're personal belongings, you need to make sure you have them. We also work with Downtown Streets team in Paul's Place, so people have a place to store things that are important to them. But we do let them know that if we've gotten to the compliance point, that it's because of the materials that we'll need to clean because it's a threat to health and safety. And then final is enforcement. And as the new chief likes to say, if we're in enforcement somewhere along the way, there's a real problem. With enforcement, it's usually because there's a response to someone that's creating, they appear to be in crisis. And they're responding to someone that's in crisis, a community member has called in, or we're just seeing someone that's in some form of crisis. Or we're seeing some kind of behavior, criminal behavior that's a threat to the community. That's when PD is called in. Depending on the circumstances, the embedded clinician will go out with PD as well and try to mitigate whatever is happening. So here in Davis, this three-pronged approach is what we're letting the community know is what we are doing. We've created these cards so we can go out and talk to the business community. We can go out and talk to neighborhood groups, and we pass them out to different organizations so they know what it is that we're doing and how our response takes place. And then finally, we are in the last month of our winter shelter. Our winter shelter takes place between November and March of each year. We offer 2 locations. One is a congregate site at Paul's Place. They have 8 beds where they allow people to stay overnight. They work with the staff that's there for case management and connection to services. And then we have a non-congregate site that's at the Yolo Flats, where the city has secured 8 beds. Those beds are reserved for people that are seniors, medically vulnerable, or are subject to predatory behavior. In order to be moved into the hotel site, we need a referral from we need a medical referral, so we get that from Sutter Davis, their discharge operators there, or we get it from mobile medicine, and they indicate to us that the person, what their needs are, and then we place them into the hotel. And once they're there, our outreach team checks on them, make sure that they have kind of like a welcome packet with things that they can use to care for themselves, little snacks so they can eat. But we also connect them to services through Turning Point goes out, County Mobile Medicine goes out as well to make sure that people someone's got eyes on them, particularly if they are recovering from a medical reason, and that we're also case managing as well. So there's a lot of coordination that happens between all of the entities involved. We usually try and meet. We're now at a bi-weekly basis because our system is working very well of sharing information, making sure people that need assistance are being connected, and that we're able to just have a better understanding of what's happening in our community. So we are in the process of looking at a couple of specific locations. We are looking in particular at F Street. We've got 2 things that are happening. On one side of town, that's on the city side, we're working on H Street. And that's where Paul's Place is working with a group of people with lived experience as a peer group, and they're cleaning the 8th Street area for us. And they're working with folks to kind of help to engage with people that are there. On the F Street side, 3 weeks ago, we convened a meeting of the Davis Outreach Team, Davis PD, Davis Code Enforcement. The county building inspector is participating with us, HHSA Outreach, and county code enforcement, and the Yolo County Sheriff. And what we're doing is trying to develop a response to the F Street location. And so we, in these meetings, what we have determined is that it's going to take all of us to kind of have a coordinated response because of the way that the site is developed. It's on city land, it's on county land, and there's railroad. So the jurisdictions wanted to have a conversation first so we could speak with the railroads about what our intents are. And then we will bring the railroad to the table and hopefully get on their schedule so that we can have a clearance of that particular area, probably the first week of April. It really will depend on the railroad schedule because neither of us can do work on that site without the railroad's access. So that's in process, but what we are currently doing is outreach to that particular location. So our outreach teams are already going out and talking with people, trying to engage with them, letting them know that there will be an action taking place in that area, so that they may want to start managing their materials. And we've got the providers that are actually working with a number of the people that are there, really letting them know that this time we're really going to work together, and that whole area will have to be mitigated. So that's my update.
Thank you for all the information, Dana. Appreciate it. I'm going to turn to see if there's any public comment real quick before I turn to my colleagues for discussion and questions. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will turn back to the dais for questions and discussion. So anyone want to start? Supervisor Allen?
Just a couple follow-up questions. Thank you for the report. Really appreciate that. In regards to the, I thank you very much for specifically for F Street because that was going to be one of my questions when I'm like, oh, good, she got there, so no need for follow-up for that. But for your policy, in general, you have the phase 2 where you ask them to tidy things up. Is it that people could be allowed to, if they don't, be allowed to stay in the location if they keep their items all together? Is that part of the phase 2 or?
So what we try to explain to people is that what we're trying to guard against is the spread of a lot of materials that really could potentially be unsafe. Mm-hmm. And we let them know that if you're not causing harm, if you are not in the right of ways, and if you are not causing a nuisance, then we really don't have a reason to, we're not attempting to try and sweep people away from where they are.
But thank you for that, but for the specifics of things are out of hand, and so that site is going to be cleared.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's really that's what you get that level of response.
Okay.
Is what we get that.
Great. And then when you were going through the list of different options for support for people, one thing I did hear about was for if there's family with children, maybe this is a Nolan thing, because it's my understanding that we always prioritize them and that we house them somewhere. Is that, you do that? You do that?
So it's a two-pronged kind of approach. Here in Davis, we work with the Yolo Children's Alliance, who's actually here in town too.
Yeah.
And if it's a family, we try and refer them to Yolo Children's Alliance, because that's what they are right here in town. We can have someone go out and see them. We've had a lot of success in placing families into some kind of housing, but we don't typically see a lot of families. I think we've had last year we had one. This year we've had 2 families, and they've both been immediately addressed by it.
Good, because with that in my understanding that that's the policy. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councilman Bertita.
So it sounds like for overnight emergency shelter or just overnight shelter. I'm not sure if we're calling it emergency shelter. I know that at Paul's Place, I think that is considered emergency shelter, the 8 beds that they have,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
It sounds like we have 16 beds
Total.
total.
And we also are partnering with St. Vincent de Paul. St. Vincent de Paul on its own has decided to reserve 2 to 3 rooms at High-Low Flats as well.
As well.
So we're partnering with them too.
Okay, because when we had the rotating winter shelter that, would rotate through the churches, I think we were closer to 40, that we would take in 40 people overnight. And then I know that when we moved away from that rotating winter shelter, we tried to get close to that number, and I think it was, like this, right? Some of it was in motels, some of it was in other places. But some of it was also, as I understood, at the Fourth and Hope location. So we would refer people to, out there to Fourth and Hope. We
still do that.
You still do that?
And that's the regional shelter. So year round, if we engage someone and they want to come inside, then we will partner with Fourth and Hope to see if they have availability. That's always that's something that we always do.
And I know that like transportation is an issue for folks, trying to get from here to there. Are there agencies or organizations that are assisting in that?
Not at this time.
Okay.
That's something that, as through the HPAC, the Homeless Poverty Action Coalition, the regional COC, we've been talking with Fourth and Hope about how we can work regionally to support the shelter. From what we understand right now, the shelter has 100-bed capacity, but they don't have the funding to operate at 100-bed capacity. They're operating at 50%.
Do we, yes, I know they presented that at the last, the Executive Commission on Homelessness. And do we see an impact I know it's all very sort of not official, but do we see an impact of them not operating at 100%?
It's less beds and less beds available when people are ready to come inside. At this point, there are a number of things that Fourth and Hope are considering to see if they can come up to capacity. Transportation is one of them, because we do know that some people will, at least from Davis, will walk to the shelter, which is not particularly safe. But we'd like, working with them, we're trying to get a better understanding of what their needs are and what their priorities are, so we can come along and support.
Okay, all right. And then as far as the responses that we have for when there are encampments that sort of, grow and we have to do this joint effort with the county, and we've had to do this one time before, and I'm hoping that we can develop some sort of a plug and play, right? Where, okay, we've hit this place again, and rather than having to call meetings and coordinate everybody that has to be in on this, that we already know who the players are and what the timelines are, right? So if we can establish this encampment has been there for this amount of time, because we're already doing the outreach to those places, and so I feel like if we could get those responses a little quicker and have it have a setup would be ideal. The other thing is, I know that when we've had this discussion about encampments, and it's more than just them growing, but it's a little more around the permanence of an encampment. And so I know that there is a lot of discussion around, well, if you have a tent or you have a space where you're sleeping for the night, and I know that we encourage people to sort of pack up in the morning and clear the area so that there's not sort of this permanence of an camp. But what happens out on F Street and some of those places that are a little more remote is that those encampments have more of a permanence to them, even if they're not spread out. And if we can also convey to the folks who are choosing to be a little further away that you still have to take down your tent, so that you know, when people are driving by, and maybe the people are not even there because they've come to the respite center or to Paul's Place to get their meals or whatever, they still see that there are like, I don't know, 10 tents out there. And I think that that's when we start to get the calls from folks.
And we do understand that, and we're trying to make sure that we are addressing the community's concerns, especially around safety and what they're seeing. This response that we're coordinating right now, the goal is to really make this a task force that meets on a regular basis so that we are ready to respond when we're seeing that a location is looking like it's growing a bit. Every time what we will do first is respond with the engagement and trying to get people to manage the site themselves. But if we get to a place where, you know, people have returned over and over, and we're seeing that it's growing, this task force will come together. We will work together to identify where those locations are, and then immediately begin scheduling how are we going to respond. The response coordination is really the thing that is key, because responding requires a budget, it requires equipment, and requires staffing. And so we have to coordinate all of that before we can go out and respond in any way. We also need an MOU between everyone so that we can, you know, again, if we're working on someone else's property, then we have an agreement that we're working with each other. And we also need to work on the timing and the scheduling. So that's what this group is pulling together now. The task force is pulling all of those pieces together now. We'll use that framework for other locations. Again, right now we're working with the railroad. Going forward, we know that we'll probably have to work with Caltrans. We don't want to bring them to the table. We know there are other people we need to bring to the table, but this is our first step at it.
Thank you. Supervisor Ferris.
Thank you. A couple of quick things. So thanks so much for the overview. Appreciate updates on all sort of the items that are underway. On the item around coordination with the railroad, I mean, I'm curious about how that's going, and you know, I mean, it's can be a bit of a challenge to get them to engage. So are they engaging? Do we need some assistance in getting them to engage? Like, just curious about that, because I think that is just a challenge on pretty regularly, and I'm specifically talking about Union Pacific in this case. So.
From what I understand, our code enforcement department and the county have a contact that they've been working with regularly for the railroads. Okay. That person, we are letting them know what we're planning. The issue becomes, it's a scheduling issue is what they tell me. It's getting onto their schedule so they can have somebody at the site and make sure the track is safe. But it looks as though with the timing that we have, if we're working a month or 2 months out, we can get on the schedule and it becomes less of an issue. So we do have a contact that we're working with.
Great. All right, thanks. Appreciate that. Helpful. And then 2 other quick items. One just around, and the city has, you know, had a variety of conversations over the last couple of years around the potential of sanctioned camping location. I don't know where that stands with the council or at the staff level, if that's something that might be in the future for, you know, consideration. I think that the key is, I mean, because it's literally a sort of a whack-a-mole situation. I mean, you know, take, you know, one encampment and say, all right, disperse, and then it gets moved, you know, half a mile down the tracks or, you know, towards Falls Place shelter, and then that gets cleaned up, and then it just moves to some other location. So curious about sort of the issue around sanctioned camping. And then the last quick item, I don't know if there's any updates on the county side of things around this item, but would love to, if there are, would love to hear from Director Sullivan, just if that is, not just on the sanctioned camping, but just in terms of this county side of coordination and all this work would be appreciated too. So curious about the sanctioned camping item first, and then if there's any updates from the county. Thanks.
So as for sanctioned camping, council has asked that I bring a DAP report to them next week on research that we're doing on other programs, other jurisdictions that are offering sanctioned camping. So I'll be bringing that to council on the 14th. So we're doing that research now.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. And just one quick just comment or plug for the potential of, if not, so you know, there's probably a wide range of options, and also what other jurisdictions have done. But I think at a minimum, one thing that seems like it can be successful is at least the single car camping part too. I mean, that's sort of a parking lot with sink, so there's one thing about tents and people building the structures and other things, but then definitely the sort of ability for a safe sort of vehicle area, it seems like that seems to have worked well in a bunch of places. So anyway, just appreciate just the comment. So thank you.
So,
We'll look forward to seeing
the
that.
city is working with an entity here in Davis that is considering a safe park program. So as we get more information from them about their operation, we will bring it forward.
Great, thanks so much, appreciate it.
Hello, Nolan Sullivan, Yolo County Health and Human Services Director. Thank you for calling me up today. So yeah, I've got a couple notes here that I wanted to share with the group. And I appreciate the comment. I think one of the larger issues that we've been experiencing countywide is just coordination with the various cities and the nonprofits and Caltrans and the railroad and. So, you've often heard me say homelessness is not the county's problem, it's not the city's problem, it's not the state or fed's problem or nonprofit's problem, it's all of our problem. And if we don't work together, we really can't actually make a dent or start to improve that process. Unfortunately, there's not a mechanism or a requirement or a law that makes us play well in the sandbox, right? So every municipality is a little bit different. In the county, the philosophy has changed over the last couple of years. Our philosophy really now is that we handle the unincorporated, right, which is a very small lift, and then we do our best to support sort of the mission, vision, kind of direction of the incorporated in the city. We really do our best not to get in their way. We don't want to put projects or housing or things in cities without city explicit buy-in or leadership. And so we've really followed that process over the last couple of years. Simultaneously, you've got lots of new folks in the homeless space, whether they're on the management end of things or case managers or different nonprofits or different groups. And COVID really just kind of frayed kind of those connections we had pre-COVID. Really were, in some places, we were working very well together. And so the county, with support of the cities, has held a series of what we call reset meetings, where we actually sit down with city homeless teams and county homeless teams to really talk about who does what programs do you have, what are your staffing levels, how do we coordinate better. And you've got everyone from myself, the director, or folks that are management level, all the way down to the case managers in a room talking about kind of what we're doing, how we're doing, and how we approach things. So we've met with all 3 cities now at least once. We actually have our second round coming up for a couple cities. We had our first with Davis about a month back. It went really well. And so it's been a while since we really connected. I know worker to worker, or sometimes personality to personality, there may be some great relationships, but the systems, frankly, were probably not on the same page as much as they could have been or should have been. And I felt like Dana and her team provided some really great information, some really impressive programs that many of us had no idea were happening. And we kind of furthered some of those connections and kind of starting points. So that was a really great first step, and I would recommend that we continue to do that, maybe every 3 months or every 6 months. I think it's really important for those teams to get together and talk about who's doing what and how do we support each other, because we all get busy and we forget how things go. So kudos to the Davis team for that. The other piece of that is we have a huge asset in Yolo County in the Executive Commission on Homelessness. This is not something that exists in other counties, and it is probably one of the more powerful tools I've seen at a higher level in terms of combating homelessness locally. The city of Davis, as well as all of the other cities, the major cities, and the county have one rep on that commission, as well as the head of the COC. It's a great way to talk about shared projects, right? So I know as a city, you're really worried about what's within Davis city limits, but frankly, Woodland's problem or West Sacs problem can become your problem very quick. We're just talking about using the shelter in Woodland with Davis residents. So again, having electeds, having those higher level county-wide discussions is very important. So I would encourage you, if you're not already on that commission and you've got interest, maybe at a later date, homelessness is your thing, that's a really great group to get involved in. And then when your peers report out at council meetings or board meetings on those commission meetings, really take some solid notes, because there's some really great work happening there and it's really powerful. What is the county doing right now for homelessness? Again, the county has a very small, lean team of homeless staff. Right now, we have a team of 3 case managers. We have 1 supervisor who also carries cases, and then we have a manager who splits her time between sort of grants and admin, and then also boots on the ground. And that's pretty much it in the county. They're 100% grant funded. That grant right now is through partnership. And they are funded to support medically fragile individuals. They're really targeting folks that are severely medically fragile, not kind of the general homeless population of adults out there. And so as you can imagine, 3 case managers, caseloads 20 to 40, 40 being pretty unsustainable. There's just not a lot of manpower in the county to apply to things. You look at the cities, cities have 2 to 7 folks as well. If you really add up all of the bodies that are dealing with general homelessness, we are tremendously understaffed in terms of dealing with a homeless population north of 900. So it's not as easy as it sounds. I think even though the governor talks about billions of dollars and all these resources, they don't exist at the ground level. Again, we've got a small army of staff that are doing their best, but if you really took the workers divided by the homeless population, that ratio is astronomical. And so just something to think about. I think oftentimes we feel like these resources are there, they're really not there. And right now, for example, in the county, that supervisor position is vacant and will remain vacant, and 1 case manager is vacant and will remain vacant because of budget issues. So we really have a team of 2 today in the county, and we do our best. Let's see what else we have here. We had a really good recent experience. I think Dana just talked about this with the F Street encampment clearing. Again, it's hard to pull everything together. You need the sheriff, you need law enforcement, you need the railroad, the city staff, the county staff. And so it is very labor intensive. And I think Dana was talking earlier about MOUs and planning and prep and all those things. Who's going to do all that, right? And so it sounds easy, right? Make a phone call to someone and go get that thing cleared out. It is an astronomical lift on the back end, and frankly, the resources just aren't there waiting for it. We've got to pull people up other stuff and kind of do this and shift. And I think the other point that Supervisor Frerichs just touched on, we don't have housing resources. So we're clearing encampments, we're just shoving people around the county, right? It's not like all of a sudden the folks that are there, all of them get housing. We've had some really good success stories, but those are a rarity. And so oftentimes we are playing a game of whack-a-mole where we're clearing an encampment and folks just go to somewhere else, and then we clear that encampment and they go to somewhere else. So really deep down, the county, the state, the nation need to continue to address low-income housing because we don't have the units for folks to go to. And so you will not see significant change on the streets until we actually have places for people to go, and that's just not happening at a rate that we need. And so again, the county continues to support grant funding, low-income housing projects, things that we can do to produce inventory because we can't solve this without inventory. So we don't have the line staff to do case management, cities, counties combined, nonprofits combined. We don't have the units to send people to, so it's a good focus for both the council and the board, I think, going forward.
Good segue to our next item.
Yes, and I'm almost wrapped up. That's a great segue. The last thing I just want to put on your radar a little bit too is that in the county and with the cities as partners, we have to work with what's called the COC, which is the Continuum of Care that's run by a group called HPAC. HPAC has had some challenges, or the COC's had some challenges over the last 5 to 10 years. They sort of folded, and the county had to step in to essentially support their admin operations and take over a big chunk of kind of what they do. They do the HMIS, they do the point in time count. They are sort of the central repository for a lot of the federal grants that come through. There's a little bit of friction there right now between, I think, the county, the cities, and the COC. And I'm not sure exactly why that's there, but we're trying to kind of smooth that out. But if those 3 entities don't work well together, you have some serious problems. They've had some turnover in the last couple of years. They've got a great new executive director. Sometimes the COC board and the county and the cities don't always align or share. We had a recent issue where we had a NOFA for homeless funding, and they had a NOFA. We should have synced those up, but for whatever reason that didn't happen. So that is an area that worries me a little bit. I've got my team kind of working on that, not placing blame or saying anyone's doing anything not good or wrong. But again, this homeless ecosystem, you have to coordinate and stay in touch and be on the same page. And so that is going to cause some problems if we don't pay some attention there. And I think the city probably has maybe had some similar issues or concerns, or just areas of places we need to apply some resources, but I will put that on folks' radar as well. And then all of this to say, under the threat of a federal administration that wants to cut Medicaid, wants to cut HUD, those are our primary funding sources for a lot of these things. So we're already really struggling. If we start cutting these major federal funding streams, I mean, the tools, the resources, the funding the county has basically dries up. And so that is very scary for us. A lot of programs, whether they're housing and case management resources, are based on Medi-Cal eligibility or linkage. If we shrink that population, or if HUD starts getting cuts, or things start getting block granted, we're in big trouble. And then lastly, really quick, Supervisor Allen, this will be the better segue as well as the earlier segue. You were talking about family homelessness. And so in Yolo, for the most part, CalWorks Housing Support typically takes on homeless families. And so YCCA is a fantastic partner of ours. They oftentimes do case management for folks, and they refer to our HSP team if they qualify for CalWorks. We have about 100 homeless families tonight across Yolo that are on the CalWorks HSP program. Some of them are in motels, which speaks to the Pacifico issue. We've really done a good job working as a system to not have those families in the shelter. When you're mixing families and individuals with all sorts of other things in shelters, it's not a great scenario. So Fourth and Hope doesn't even have a family shelter anymore because we've kind of solved that problem to some degree. There's still some gap families, which can be problematic, and you've got to find some other resources for. But the CalWorks HSP program is running strong. And we'll send you a document called Yolo Safety Net by the Numbers. We just shared it with the Board of Supervisors yesterday. I'll share it with the councils, the city manager soon. Just to put things in perspective, the CalWorks population of Yolo County today is 3,236 individuals. That's parents and kids. That equates to roughly 1,162 families across the county. The city of Davis currently has 504 individuals and 163 families. So they are less by ratio in terms of low-income families in Davis than maybe some other places in Yolo. You've got 163 that are living in deep, deep poverty. And of that 163, I don't know the exact percentage today, but some of them are also homeless on HSP. So there are some folks there to think about. And that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you, Nolan. I appreciate it. I'll save my questions for offline. I'll follow up with you, Dana. One thing I'll just point out maybe for, I know the railroad piece, as you mentioned, Supervisor Frerichs, has been extremely difficult. And I don't know to what end it would be worth it, but maybe I think there are folks going to cap to cap. If there's a way for us to reach out and try and meet with people there offline or something, to see if there's a way to kind of just come up with a different creative solution or whatever that may be. I don't know what the roadblocks are, but clearly there are ones that are there, and we've worked hard trying to get through them. Not that that would fix it, but it may be worth a shot to follow up offline on that. Okay, we're going to close. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Nolan. Appreciate it. We will now move on to agenda item 6B, Pacifico Facility Rehabilitation Update. And we have Kelly Stackowitz, who's our Assistant City Manager, Ryan Piscatini, who's the Director of General Services for Yolo County, and Nolan Sullivan again. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to start this off. I do have a quick one-page handout for each of you. And so this handout is representative of where we are. Staff has received the details several weeks ago to a month and a half ago. But basically on where we stand on Pacifico is we reached 30% of design, which is a major milestone in construction. In this case, it means we figured out all the major building elements that need to be upgraded per discussions with the city and my client, the County Health and Human Services Department. We took that 30% design and we went to a cost estimating firm. Cost estimators are great at what they do. They try to figure out from the design where the market is today and come up with the cost of the project. And doing it at the 30% mark is a pretty decent point to estimate where the project cost will be. And it also helps us determine the project liability. Where I am at as a capital projects responsibility is we have an estimate that's on that one-page sheet of a project cost of $3.3 million and change to do renovations to building A, B, and the site work. Per request from both city and HSSA, my team broke down those costs into what we think would be county share and city share. Albeit this is a bit of a rough estimate of those distribution of costs. There are some things that would be further refined one way to the other depending on a number of circumstances. But at the end of the day, what is needed for general services to proceed is knowing the financial viability to get to construction. Or do we look at rescoping the project and resizing it if this number can't be hit? And the reason that's important is the next step I immediately would have to do is to retain the same architect we have on this project to get to 100% design. So they're only contracted to 30%. I need another $337,000 change to get them to 100% design. At 100% design, building A, B, and the site works, but fully designed, it's permitted, and we can go to bid. But that's our next milestone, and it's a hurdle we need to clear. And it's a hurdle that even I recommend that we don't jump over unless we know how we're going to proceed on construction. or else it's just money that we spent and we can't utilize. So that's kind of where I'm at. I know Nolan knows, he can detail his financial constraints and which feeds into what my next actions are. I think Kelly's had a number of discussions with staff as well, and what the city's financial constraints on this project is too. And then I can answer any questions on the technical details of how we do construction and approach on that.
Thank you, Ryan. Nolan, I'll start with Nolan, then go to Kelly.
So we had a meeting with several folks that are here today on Monday, and there were 3 key questions that were asked that I wanted to kind of get back to this group with on those questions. The first was really some heavy clarification on the encumbrance, and so Yolo County has 1.2 million in CalWorks HSP funds to allocate to this project. Those funds do expire though at the end of the fiscal year, and so on June 30th, basically, we have to return those to the state, and so we are on a very short timeline for that. There is some ability to encumber funds past the fiscal year end and use contracts and a variety of other mechanisms that Ryan is far more a wizard on than I am. But according to Ryan, for the question received, we think realistically we can encumber about $337,000 for the architectural work and maybe up to about $290,000 for the site work. So that puts us somewhere in the ballpark of about $600,000. So we would still be losing about $600,000 in funds even if we proceeded forward today. So in my mind, that's a pretty heavy issue. The second piece of that was asked at the meeting was, could we do a single building? Would that speed things up? Would that change things? How would that work? I think to Ryan's point, it really wouldn't allow us to speed up the process, and we'd be kind of in the same boat. Also speaking with my staff, they weren't really interested in kind of a smaller scale down project. It just, they'd have to change the program mix. We'd still have to pay for security, case management, site work, and we're paying for 1 building versus 2. So just economy of scale and scope didn't really make sense. And so I think the single building question is probably not the best option, but it was the only option, we could consider it. And then lastly, again, the state budget right now is going through their process. We did fire off a formal question to our advocates at CWDA to talk about extending the 1.2. There was some rumor or myth that potentially that would be extended through the end of the calendar year, December 2025, and then also, who could we lobby at the state? Would that be our representatives? Would that be IBR Curry? Who would that be to maybe help kind of prove that case? I haven't heard back just yet, and so I don't have any updated information on that. I expect I'll hear back probably by the end of the day today, if not tomorrow, and I can let this group know, but I don't have any news on the extension of the funds at this point.
Thank you, Nolan. I'll turn to Kelly.
The last piece of the puzzle, the city's commitment to the project in terms of the financial pieces, based on the information that Ryan provided, the city would need to provide, we'll call it $1.8 million. We have the 800,000 piece of it, and we had planned to put the home ARP dollars, which amounts to about 1.4 million toward the project as well, which would cover our share and then some. We have verbal approval that our home ARP plan has finally been approved. We do not have anything in writing yet. And just as Nolan indicated on the previous item, we're a little bit nervous about what's happening at the federal level with HUD and whether those dollars will end up being provided to us or not. That said, we certainly don't want to see $1.2 million either leave the project or leave be returned to the state, so we're definitely sensitive to that. We have discussed internally some potential plans B and C and D if the home ARP dollars don't materialize, but we would be looking at about $1 million that we would need to repurpose from something else to get this project done. So that's the situation that we're currently in. And it's really a comfort level with how much risk is the city willing to take to get this project started and underway.
Thank you. I will turn to my colleagues on the dais for questions of anyone on our staff team.
So the number that you gave, I think it was like 330 some odd for getting to 100%. That's included in these numbers here?
No, that's on top of.
That's on
So
top.
this estimate is just when you get to a general contractor and you have them build, these 3.3 is the build component. The architect component, the remaining architectural and engineering component is the 337,000.
Okay, that's coming from where?
So, I honestly don't recall. The great aspect of my job is people tell me where they have the money and then I get it done.
Yeah, it's the county's share that's gonna go into it. In fact, we had an item for the board, the last board meeting, not yesterday, the one before, that it was gonna allocate, I think it was 358,000 that we pulled because we were uncertain about the city's share going to be there, right? In other words, we put money towards the architect to do what if there's not gonna be the city's. We keep coming back to the same spot where, you know, where is it, can we believe that the city's money will be there? And there's obviously the complications that we've been talking about.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just asking because you know, if we commit to an amount that we say, okay, we're going to try to find this money, I don't want it to suddenly, okay, well, now we need another, you know, 150 if we're gonna split the last amount.
We just, to put a point on this, so it was already budgeted someplace for this 300,000, because we were going to approve it, so it was somewhere, and it wasn't in this list, so it's not part of the 1.2. Right?
It most likely would have come out of the 1.2, so that would have reduced our construction budget, so this list would be slightly underinflated with the cost there.
So our part would really, unless we split it, so it's 300,000 more has to go be put into this that isn't already.
Sorry. Other questions?
Yeah, just a couple quick ones. So where are these dollars housed at the state right now? Which Department of Social Services, like, where?
Yeah, the Department of Social Services has a housing division now, so
Okay.
the housing division has a couple different programs. This is one of those programs.
Okay. And then I know, so appreciate the questions being asked of the California Welfare Directors Association on this. I said it yesterday, I'll say it again today. We need to engage with our folks like in the legislature and or also the administration. You know, literally, the governor's literally special advisor on these issues lives in Davis. Kim McCoy-Wade is an example. Like, we need to literally reach out to these people ASAP. They can, there's an ability to get, I think, because that's one of the issues of course, is the city going to potentially have matching funds or ability to sort of plug a hole? That's an issue, of course. But one of the biggest issues is like, can we get an extension on the timeline? If we can get an extension on the timeline, this becomes easier, I think, overall to do, and makes a lot of other choices, subsequent choices, much more clear. So, the county has lobbyists. I don't know about the city these days, but I don't know. I feel like we're, what needs to occur to get some of these key folks informed about a potential extension of this timeline? That's, I guess, my question. I don't know who is responsible for answering that question, but short of us making phone calls to the elected officials or other folks, which is doable, we can do that, but what needs to happen?
So to your point, Lucas, about the timeline and needing an extension for the timeline, we would need an extension for the timeline to find more money or to make a decision to bring it to the board, because I kind of feel like we are at a point where it's yes or no. Right?
I think this extension for the timeline is due to a couple of things. One, we can only encumber $600,000, so therefore we still have to basically turn back $600,000 to the state. That's one reason why we want an extension of the timeline. We would not want to turn back any money to the state by June 30th. We would want to be able to have a longer timeline in which we could then start construction and then, again, not turn back any of the $1.2 million from the state. That's one reason. Another reason would seem like it would give some additional flexibility and timing for the city to figure out if there is either going to be an opportunity to receive money from HUD, to know about that, or figure out for the city and the county to help figure out how to plug the missing hole, the other holes that might be missing from the overall dollar amount. So again, potential extension seems like there's a bunch of benefits of figuring out whether or not there's an extension for 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. I wasn't
And
clear.
any other reason, or any other issues that staff thinks that I missed, or I don't know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, which I'm,
No,
maybe missing some stuff.
That's really helpful because I missed the part about the encumbrance and that was the only amount that we could encumber right now. And is that correct? Is there nothing else that can be encumbered, or is there nothing else that we can spend this on now?
There's about 600,000 now that would be productive that could be encumbered, and then anything past that would need an extension of sorts. And I should hear any moment about the extension, but I hear you, and I would expect that I'll have something back within the next day or two.
I guess I appreciate that. I will just say this, and I have immense respect for this, the CWDA, the Welfare Directors Association. I do not know that that is the final answer. Even if they come back and say, no, it is not possible, they are an entity that lobbies the legislature. They are not the decision makers in either the administration or in the legislature. So I am very happy that we've asked them and grateful for their work and think they are a fantastic organization. I don't know that whatever answer if their answer comes back and says, no, it's not possible, I'm not sure I accept that as currently.
Sure.
I think we just need to run it up the flagpoles to determine, exhaust all the options around the potential of whether or not it is indeed possible to have an extension. I understand that has already been utilized previously. We asked nicely and we got an extension before. But we are really close to having this actually happen. And so
After so many years, kind of still been in there.
yeah, and there's lots of reasons for that, yeah. So anyway, but just, I do think that it never hurts to ask, in my opinion, the people who are in the Capitol and Sacramento, et cetera, to see if there's a possibility of how to make it happen.
So the other question that I have is, if all you could encumber was the 600,000, is there the ability, and I know then it's sort of like a gamble, right, that we get started and in the next round of being able to, draw down some funds for this, would there be the ability to, to cover that with the next amount, and then that way you could take your other 600,000 and put it into other projects so you don't lose it altogether?
Yeah,
We would rather have the whole amount.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think, we won't know our allocation amounts for another month or so, but we'll have some information. In times, the past 5 or 6 fiscal years, it was almost like, yeah, we guarantee we're gonna get a multi-million-dollar allocation. The last 2 years have been pretty strange, obviously, because of the state budget. So I don't have a good crystal ball on what we'll get next, if we get anything. They've actually cut 3 of their 4 total CDSS housing programs. One's eliminated, 2 are on the ropes. HSP's the last one standing because of the state budget issues. So I just don't know what next year is really going to look like, and I'm a little nervous about that fund balance. I mean, we could spend 600 on architecture, basic construction, and then pivot. We actually have a couple Plan B, Plan C, Plan D for these funds now that we're ready to pivot on if it's like the answer is no today. So theoretically, maybe we could do 2 projects, but then that still could leave a big gap in this potential project if we did the design and a little bit of construction and we didn't get the funds next year. So we have some options, and again, if we don't pursue this, the sooner we know, we have other projects we're going to pursue that are shovel-ready. But I understand this is a special project. We want to see it happen. We worked for several years on it too, but it's just a really tight timeline.
I'm texting with sort of the person at the county who handles our governmental affairs, and we'll follow up with our lobbyists to see what we have in the way of hope in this and see if we can get some access to HUD and possible extension. So we'll see what that leads, but I think that's something we can do.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, just one quick clarification. I don't think it's HUD. I think it's the Department of Social Services. Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to talk offline or whatever. But I mean, I think there's I think we've got folks who are advocates for what we're trying to do, who are director of the Department of Social Services, in the governor's office, in the legislature. So yeah, definitely appreciate that effort. Thank you.
But I think we want to talk to HUD too, because that's the city portion of it, that's
sure. Yes,
the question mark. So we're happy to talk to HUD also.
Of course,
So
yes.
let's loosen, shake that tree.
Yeah, absolutely. My apologies. Yeah, it's just
Right, but for this particular thing, it's.
Yeah, absolutely.
City Manager Webb?
Yeah, just really quick, I think it's completely appropriate for the county to take lead in terms of contacting the state regarding the time extension opportunities and options. Just offering that, we will do whatever, however we can support those efforts for an extension. We're there with you. I think it's appropriate that the county lead on it since it's the recipient of the funds, but whatever we can do to help and support that and show a partnership, collaboration, we're there and happy to help. We'll take the county's lead though, and when and if and how we do that.
Thank you, Mike. Any further?
Yeah, and I feel like I'm always harassing you, Ryan, I really apologize, but I'm gonna push just a little bit more, perhaps, this is not my area, but the issue of encumbrance, to my understanding of it is that you have signed a contract and you know you're spending this amount of money.
That's correct.
Is it not because if we have an architectural firm and then we're gonna do construction, is it not possible to sign a contract with the company who's gonna actually build it? It has to be in this order, it can't be, we're doing the building and then we know we're gonna build it because we have the funds and everything, it's just a matter of timing?
So, try to boil this down really quickly. So it stems back to the California law around the public contract code that governs public works. This county, we're experienced with what's called design, bid, build method of contracting for big projects like this. So you first design it, you get it to 100%, put it out to bid, and then you build. So in this case, the challenge that we're having is the time to design the remaining percent to get it to permitting and the city building official for approval is too tight for us to get to that part, to then put it out to bid per state law requirements and get a contract signed. There are a few things that we looked at the timeline that we can do to shorten it, but even those steps puts it beyond the fiscal year. There's another method of contracting. We didn't do this for this project. It would be kind of tough to do. It's called design build. That's some people argue it's a quicker way of doing things. It is quicker, but I believe it introduces more risk on the back end. And quite frankly, we've never done that before, so that's an added risk to go down that process. And you need more in-house staff to manage the process because of its uniqueness. So it's really down to the calendar, it's down to what the state law requires for public works, and trying to fit those things together is causing that problem.
I forgot about the bidding process here, Richard, so that is always, I'm like, just get somebody on there. The other question that I had is there any way that we can switch out funds and then reimburse the project afterwards? Not that we have money laying around, we just had our budget plan, but if it was just a matter of a couple months of utilizing some funds from someplace else, and then we were able to get, that would be able to get us to say that we can say that there is funds, and we just have this one deadline problem at this point.
I have to look to my peers for that. What I do is based on the source of funds, we try to make sure, because sometimes federal funds have extra strings attached, so we try to hit that. My team do that. That said, as to the availability, and I defer to my colleagues.
I don't have any good ideas.
You don't have any money lying around, no?
I think actually, I will just jump in, and I think honestly, we haven't had, neither of our two official bodies have had the, official conversation or official actions on this item, but, crisis now. City's allocated $1 million, county's allocated $3 million. We have budget challenges in the county, those dollars may just get completely put into plugging budget challenges. May happen for the city too, but I don't think crisis now receiving center is going to happen. That's just my personal opinion. So both entities have to officially decide that, but that's $3 million at the county and $1 million at the city of Davis, and have no idea what the city of Davis might ever do with those dollars. And I also don't know what our board of supervisors might do with the $3 million, but I'll just say that.
There is some money.
Yeah, and everyone is gonna continue to have budget challenges, no question. So, that's no guarantees there, of course, but I absolutely don't think that I don't see the crisis now item moving forward, the last and final phase, at least as it's been envisioned, and primarily because, we have such uncertainty around the federal appropriation that Congressman Thompson was able to conceivably secure for us, which we're super grateful for, but just don't know if that's ever gonna sort of show up. So it feels like it puts the entire thing into potential sort of doubt. So.
And just one more comment, is that by building a facility that's going to serve a need, it's gonna be more than just like as if you paid for, like, we're gonna pay for hotels for a year, which would be great and address the need, but then this is an ongoing resource that's available.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other further questions, comments for our staff team? Okay, thank you so much. I assume there's gonna be a lot of scrambling in the next 24 or 48 hours with our staff team and with folks on the city side as well to get to the answer that we all know we need to hear. So thank you guys for that. I know Martha, you made a public comment on this item, so we'll kind of move over to agenda item. Well, I'll turn to my colleagues. We have agenda item 6C, and then we have city manager and CAO updates. Are you doing the, yeah, you are. Quickly, do you want to touch on the embedded correspondence?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just go really fast here, and Supervisor Ferrick probably has more questions or kind of discussion points to add into that. So the primary funding streams at Health and Human Services that support the bulk of our behavioral health programming are really struggling. So we have what's called the MHSA, which is the Mental Health Services Act funding. It is based on a tax on millionaires in California that produces funding for local counties to do all sorts of wonderful things. Crisis Now, mental health services, things of that sort. It is intended to not replace general funding or kind of basic mental health services. It's meant to sort of add on, expand, and kind of grow new services, new programs, new resources. So the bottom line here on two fronts is the first is that MHSA for 25-26, as we do our budget submission and projections for next year, we've got a $1.9 million deficit already. So we're already looking at starting the year with a hole of 1.9 million that wipes out our fund balance, wipes out our surplus, and we've got to carve down about 1.9 million in mental health funding here in the county. Secondarily, realignment, so we have 91 realignment, 2011 realignment in the county. Some of that actually is for behavioral health as well. Unfortunately, we're looking at about a $1.3 million deficit in our 2011 realignment. 91, we have a small surplus, which is good, a couple of million in surplus, but you really can't use the two interchangeably. So all of this to say, our mental health funding in the county is seriously struggling. And the way that the crisis clinicians work today, the city supports about 1/3 of the cost of a fully loaded crisis clinician. The county supports the other 2/3 with MHSA funding purely. And we have been in a hiring freeze in Health and Human Services for quite some time now. Almost a year. We've made some exceptions and a few other bits and pieces over the last couple of months, but at least for the last few months, and even more so right now, we are not hiring any positions that have any sort of MHSA nexus because we're already in the negative. So this position, unfortunately, was not allowed to move forward or not able to be filled in Davis. So right now we have 2 clinicians embedded in West Sac, we have 2 clinicians embedded in Woodland, we have 1 in Davis, and we have 1 floater and a supervisor. And so we just don't have the ability to fill that second position right now, and even if the city could and would do their contribution, which you guys have agreed to via an MIU, but the county doesn't have the funding at this point to fund the other side of that. We are looking at kind of, as Supervisor Ferrick mentioned, do we adjust how Crisis Now looks and maybe actually push more of the resources that would have gone to the receiving center, to CIT clinicians or other places. Unfortunately, the sort of the deck of cards that funds mental health services in California is starting to fall apart. We're not the only county this is happening in many other places, but we are really struggling right now to figure out how to sort of right-size our services. We had to make a presentation to the board yesterday about reducing mental health clinic hours in Davis. This will probably be the first of many reductions. So unfortunately, Davis is down 1. We're sort of figuring out what next year looks like, but that is the situation as it stands today, unfortunately.
All right, thank you, Nolan. I'll just check and see if there's any public comment on this item before I turn back to my colleagues. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do my colleagues have questions for Dr. Sullivan?
Less questions, just a couple quick comments. One, I haven't asked for this item to be on the agenda because I think a couple of things. One, this position or positions are completely essential to the work that we've been doing as shared, both city and county work, especially around mental health. and the issues, I mean, they really impact every single item that's been on this agenda today. So I think it is, I understand the situation that we're in, but all the other bigger jurisdictions all have two embedded clinicians. I think the city, frankly, is deserving of that. So I would say a couple things. One, I do think there are a lot of tough choices that already have been made and going to continue to be made. So by this county, including the Board of Supervisors. So would just say that there's still going to be conversations about how to try to help fund this position or this additional position. That's one. Two, I would ask respectfully to the city, I think if the city finds this valuable, also if there's an ability to help try to figure out how to sort of co-fund this together. Currently it's a 2/3, 1/3 split county-city, so just ask my two colleagues here about the possibility of some additional funds there. And then as the director of the HHSA said, I will just say, I did raise yesterday, I'm like, well, if we're going to potentially not move forward on the final phase of crisis now, there are some dollars that exist around ARP money. Some of those dollars for the county side of things may very well end up getting plugged into sort of budget holes, but then also I think some of those dollars should be spent on mental health. And that, one of the investments that I certainly would be advocating for is to fund a crisis sort of co-responder position. So just putting that out there, a couple of comments and thoughts, but I mean, I think this work, oh, and last quick item, we absolutely need to go to the university, like, again, and ask them about this issue and approach them about this issue. I have reason to believe that a good number of the clients that the crisis intervention co-responders are seeing in Davis happen to be students who live off campus. So I just think that I think that's a natural thing that we should be doing, is having a conversation with UC Davis about the potential of collaborating yet again on a number of the sort of programs that we share and the issues that we share in our shared community. So just a few point comments there.
Thank you, Supervisor Ferris. And then questions or comments from colleagues? Just a quick note, the room is reserved at 1:30 for another event, so if we can, we'll do these comments, questions quickly, and then we'll...
Just for the fun, because I really like Luce's line of thinking, and I really value this. Way back when I was still on a commission for the city to reimagining the public safety, I think it was called. This model of the co-responder was really what the direction that we suggested and the city council accepted. So I think that it's inappropriate that the largest city in the county has fewer co-responders than other places, and so if we can figure this out, I would really appreciate it. And I want to know who's going to ask UCD. Is that, where that, like for an action item, who's going to ask them? Us? City manager?
Well, I mean, we've met with them twice in the last month on this issue. One was in the formal annual town gown meeting.
Right. We just had that. Now we have that. I can't wait till next year.
So, exactly. So, whatever process that was to schedule the meeting, I think, they've been willing to meet, just not willing to commit to the request, right? And just, I guess to put this in context, I mean, we had quite a meeting yesterday morning with the board talking about our situation of our finances, and while we reference this to some extent as a hiring freeze, what we've done with all vacancies the department wants to fill go through the CAO's office via the finance department, and we meet on these weekly and we talk about them weekly. There's a larger discussion the board has asked us to have now with all vacant positions and where are they, how are they funded, et cetera. So while things are frozen, there is an opportunity in the future for these to move forward. We're also going to be teeing up, per the board's, I think, instruction yesterday, is an up or down on the third phase of Crisis Now. And we're going to either bring that in the form of a motion at our meeting on March 25th or at the first meeting in April. It's coming as part of a larger item, but we're going to have a signal from this board, and judging from what I heard yesterday, I think it will be to not proceed with the third phase and to do something else with that money. The question is, does that funding get wrapped up into the larger budget discussion the board is making, or is there some more ancillary motion that the board makes saying, with this $3 million, we want to do something now? Which can happen if they want to take that out of the context of our larger budget discussion. Just putting this in perspective, it's unfortunately the vacancy happened at a time when we were looking very closely at vacancies. So it wasn't a conscious decision not to fund a Davis position. It became vacant we're leaving it vacant, it could be funded in the future, just to clarify. Thanks.
Thank you.
I would just add to that, in terms of the city-county, communication around this, I think it would be valuable to make sure that whomever initiates the meeting with the university, that both partners, the city and county, join in that conversation, as we have in the last couple of conversations. I would suggest that continuing that mantra. And then, just in addition to that, if there's a need for the county to, from a budgetary standpoint, to say, look, there's no alternative but to, cut a embedded clinician position, I think that it would be a prudent step to engage in conversation about alternative means, as opposed to just saying, no, look, it's not happening. Are there other options and ideas to help, retain that second embedded clinician? If it means revisiting the 1/3, 2/3 approach. I can speak to, I'll go ahead and speak for our police chief, Todd Henry. The embedded clinician program has been absolutely invaluable, and it's been just an absolute, deal changer for our police officers. They love it. Our community has responded very well to it. Davis would love to have a second embedded clinician one way or another, so.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Okay, we'll close agenda item number 6. You guys want to do any brief updates or important stuff to say there?
No, other than this will be my last 2x2, and it'll be Mike's. Well, he'll continue it in a different role. But no, Mike actually sat in with our department head meeting this morning at the county, which was great, sort of interchange. And he's coming on at a very fortuitous time where we have a lot of big decisions to be made. But I think this is a really good change or more move for us to make in the county in terms of our city-county relationship. I think having Mike on this side of the table for so many years, moving over into this seat, I'm really optimistic for the future. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Derek. It's been great work.
It's Nolan's last 2x2 also, so thank you for all the work that he's done for this.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Indeed. Just very briefly, Dana mentioned it earlier, there will be an agenda item anticipated for the council next week, which will be a report back on a number of line items that staff is working with our homelessness subcommittee to bring back to the whole council. Basically a menu of items that the council asked for more information about, costs and timelines and so forth, stemming from a special meeting the council had late last year. So that's slotted for the 18th. It's everything from talking about the days of the week that our respite center operates to safe parking, to sanctioned camping, to potential contract services to help and assist with cleanup services, and a number of other items. So that will be on the 18th, something that the county should be paying some attention to. So there's just more to come on that as the agenda packet comes out at the end of this week. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Any closing comments, remarks, colleagues? No, I would just say thank you, Nolan.
Thank you.
Nearly 17 years of serving this county, and it's been a pleasure working with you in the past 5 years in my role as a council member, and we've been fortunate to have you here, and I look forward to seeing what you accomplish up in Sonoma. Thank you so much for your work.
I'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.